Every system has a vulnerability.
Every network has a door.
And somewhere out there, someone already knows how to open it. This is Breach.
Every day, 11,000 banks in over 200 countries send each other messages through a single, trusted network. They call it SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. In seconds, billions of dollars cross oceans, silently, invisibly. And for decades, the world assumed it was safe. Dhaka, Bangladesh, 2016. A city of 17 million people, the capital of one of the world's fastest-growing economies, and home to a central bank holding billions in foreign reserves, parked, as most central banks do, at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. On the surface, everything looked normal, but somewhere inside this building's computer network, something had been waiting, watching, for over a year. In a single night, $81 million would vanish, and the trail would lead to one of the most dangerous hacking groups on the planet, operating on direct orders from the government. To understand what happened in Bangladesh, you have to go to North Korea, Pyongyang, a country so isolated, so controlled, that most of the world barely knows what happens inside its borders. But behind those concrete walls, something was being built. Around 2009, the North Korean regime created the Reconnaissance General Bureau, the RGB, a single intelligence unit that consolidated the country's best hackers under one roof. Their early targets were South Korean media companies and American defense contractors. But by 2014, they had a new idea, one that no nation-state had ever tried before. Nation-state hackers don't rob banks. That's not how it works. They steal secrets. They disrupt infrastructure. They spy. But North Korea's economy was collapsing under international sanctions. The regime needed cash, and their hackers, among the most disciplined in the world, were about to become bank robbers. Security researchers would come to call them the Lazarus Group, a name drawn from the biblical story of a man raised from the dead. Because no matter how many times the world tried to shut them down, they kept coming back. In 2014, the Lazarus Group made their first major mark on the world stage, destroying Sony Pictures Entertainment's entire network in retaliation for a movie that mocked North Korea's leader. The FBI confirmed Pyongyang was responsible. But for the Lazarus Group, Sony was just the beginning. In 2017, they would unleash WannaCry, a ransomware attack that locked up hospitals, banks, and government systems across 150 countries. But before any of that, they planned their most audacious operation yet, a bank robbery, the largest in history. January 2015. An email arrives at Bangladesh Bank. The sender calls himself Rasel Alam. He's looking for a job. Polite, professional. He's attached his CV and cover letter. Rasel Alam does not exist. He is a name invented by the Lazarus Group, and at least 3 employees opened that email. The moment someone downloaded that file, the Lazarus Group was inside. Not loudly. Not obviously. The malware moved through the network the way smoke moves through a building. Slow, invisible, following every vent and corridor. One computer, then another, then another. Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT infrastructure had a critical flaw. Its international payment terminals were connected to the bank's domestic network, and that domestic network was connected to the open internet. There was no firewall. The systems were unmonitored. The Lazarus Group had found an open door into the global banking system. Over the following months, the hackers mapped every system. They learned the workflows. They watched which operators had access to SWIFT. They studied when approvals were sent and received. They were not in a hurry. They had a plan. Buried in the malware was a keylogger, software that silently records every keystroke a user makes, every password, every credential, every authentication code. By January 2016, the Lazarus Group had the login credentials for Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT operator. They could now speak to the world's banking network as if they were the bank itself. October 2014, reconnaissance begins. January 2015, the phishing email. May 2015, fake bank accounts quietly opened at RCBC in Manila. Each one seeded with just $500. Each one left dormant. Over a year of preparation. And they had not touched a single dollar yet. The target system was SWIFT Alliance Access, the software that banks use to send and receive payment messages across the global network. By late January 2016, the Lazarus Group had moved deep inside Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT environment. Everything was ready. February 4th, 2016. A Thursday evening in Dhaka, 8:36 p.m. Bangladesh Standard Time. Bank employees have gone home for the weekend. The building is quiet. And the Lazarus Group begins, 9:55 a.m. in New York. At the Federal Reserve Bank on Liberty Street, a full working day is just beginning. And 35 fraudulent payment orders are arriving, each one authenticated with Bangladesh Bank's own SWIFT credentials, each one appearing completely legitimate. The orders total $951 million, nearly $1 billion. The New York Fed rejected the first batch. The formatting was wrong. So the hackers resubmitted, corrected, and tried again. This time, 5 transactions slipped through. Back in Dhaka, the bank had a simple safeguard. A printer, running 24 hours a day, automatically printing records of every SWIFT transaction. Every morning, an officer named Zuboir would check that tray. But the Lazarus Group had thought of this too. They had hacked the printer's software. That morning, it printed nothing but blank pages. The alarm that should have sounded didn't. $81 million moved across the Pacific in milliseconds, landing in 4 accounts at the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, the Jupiter Street branch in Makati City, Manila. Accounts that had been sitting quietly for 8 months, waiting for this exact moment. A further $20 million was routed to Sri Lanka, to a non-profit organization called the Shalika Foundation. There was one problem. The Shalika Foundation does not exist. It has never existed. There is no such registered organization in Sri Lanka. In Manila, the 4 RCBC accounts were immediately drained. Within hours of the funds arriving, the money was withdrawn in cash, Philippine pesos, converted at exchange desks, and carried out in bags. But in Sri Lanka, the transfer was stopped. Not by a sophisticated security system, not by an alert cybersecurity team, by a spelling mistake. The hackers had written "foundation" instead of "foundation." A routing bank, Deutsche Bank, noticed the odd spelling and asked Bangladesh Bank for clarification. Bangladesh Bank confirmed. The transfer was fraudulent. The $20 million was frozen and later recovered. One missing letter. $20 million saved. Philippine law at the time had a critical gap. Casinos were explicitly exempt from anti-money laundering regulations. The Lazarus Group knew this. It was not an accident. The $81 million entered the casino industry within days. Cash was exchanged for chips. Chips were played. Chips were cashed out. The digital trail, the one that connects a SWIFT transfer to a bank account to a person, had been broken. What entered as stolen central bank funds left the casino as gambling winnings. Clean, untraceable. At the center of the laundering operation was a gambling junket operator, a businessman who organized high-roller casino trips. Millions passed through his operation. Some was recovered. Much was not. Investigators estimate that approximately $66 million remains unrecovered to this day. After the casinos, the money moved to Macau, the gambling hub on China's southern coast. From Macau to China. From China, the trail goes cold. Because China shares a border with North Korea, and North Korea does business with Chinese companies. In those transactions, $66 million can disappear completely. The men who physically handled the cash in Manila, the ones who walked out of the casinos with the money, boarded flights to China within days of the heist. They were gone before investigators understood what had happened. The FBI spent 2 years following the digital breadcrumbs, the malware, the network infrastructure, the command and control servers, the code signatures. And everywhere they looked, they found the same fingerprints. Symantec found a rare piece of code, one that had only ever appeared in 2 other places: the Sony Pictures hack and attacks on South Korean media companies in 2013. BAE Systems reverse-engineered the malware and found it had been specifically written to manipulate Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT confirmation messages. This was not opportunistic. This was a precision operation, custom-built for one target. In September 2018, the United States Department of Justice unsealed a criminal complaint. The suspect, Park Jin-hyuk, a North Korean national, a programmer who worked for a government front company called Chosun Expo Joint Venture, itself a cover for the Reconnaissance General Bureau. Park was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and computer fraud. He has never been arrested. He remains on the FBI's Cyber Most Wanted list. In 2021, the DOJ went further. A federal indictment named 3 members of the Lazarus Group, Park Jin-hyuk, John Chang-hyuk, and Kim Il, as part of a single conspiracy responsible for cyber attacks, stealing over $1.3 billion from victims worldwide. Banks in Vietnam, Bangladesh, Taiwan, Mexico, Malta, Africa. The Lazarus Group had not stopped at Bangladesh Bank. They had kept going. In the Philippines, the RCBC branch manager, who had facilitated the transfer of funds, Maya Santos de Guito, was convicted on 8 counts of money laundering. She was sentenced to between 4 and 7 years in prison per count. The first, and so far only, conviction directly connected to the Bangladesh Bank heist. As of today, approximately $66 million remains missing. No one from the Lazarus Group has ever stood in a courtroom. No one from the North Korean government has ever faced consequences. The indictments exist. The evidence is overwhelming. And Park Jin-hyuk is still out there. After the Bangladesh Bank heist, SWIFT launched a mandatory security update program for all member institutions. Banks around the world were required to implement new controls, new monitoring, new authentication. But the vulnerability that the Lazarus Group had exploited was not really a technical one. It was a human one. A phishing email, an employee who clicked a link, a network that wasn't properly segmented, a printer that printed blank pages and was never questioned. Every single layer of this attack succeeded because someone, somewhere, trusted something they shouldn't have. The Bangladesh Bank heist forced governments and financial institutions to confront something they had long avoided. A nation-state will rob your bank if it needs the money and believes it can get away with it. The question was no longer whether it could happen. It already had. The Lazarus Group is still active. They have since stolen hundreds of millions more in cryptocurrency, in additional SWIFT attacks, in ransomware. The Bangladesh Bank heist did not end with an arrest. It did not end with justice. It ended with $66 million disappearing across a border that the rest of the world cannot cross, and a group of hackers operating on government orders who are still out there, right now, looking for the next open door.